Hello friends, and welcome to the Craft Cottage. Thanks for joining me this week. Our video is going to be a compilation of some of my favorite salvaged wood pieces. Just sit back, relax, and enjoy this video and be inspired to use salvaged pieces to create beautiful home decor. Let's get crafting. Just another quick reminder that this is a compilation video. These videos are from previous DIY content from my channel. The original voiceovers may contain outdated information, so remember that any giveaways, playlists, or challenges that I mention are expired and do not apply. Enjoy. First of all, we're going to start with this little scrap of wood from my cousin's house. She did a remodel, and she found this shiplap behind her wall, and she gave me some pieces of it. And I have these little salvaged pieces from some old lamp. I think they're lamp keys, from what I understood from the person that I got them from. I'm going to use some IOD transfers on this. This is going to be so simple. I did not sand this wood down. I just cleaned it up. I sprayed some oils on it to disinfect it. And I'm going to use these beautiful IOD transfers, and I'm just going to cut them to fit where I want. I'm just cutting them up. It's the beauty of the transfers is you can just piece them together, overlap them. You can layer them. You can cut them to fit your design. And so I'm going to just peel it off that backing sheet. Use the little plastic stick that comes with it, and just rub it down on there. Now, this wood was very uneven. It had a little bit of paint chipping on it, which I loved. I did not want to change that, so I just worked a little harder to get that transferred on there. I just had to press in a little bit harder here and there, used my fingernail in some places, but it did transfer pretty seamlessly. It's just where the little tiny details are that I had to rub a little bit more on the edges. You can see a little bit of that flower didn't transfer, and I just had to lay it down and put the transfer sheet back on there and rub it in. And I just cut pieces of it and laid it down, or maybe I didn't even put it back on there. I left it rustic looking. I don't remember. It looks like I didn't. And then I took my little finger sander, sanded around the edges and across the top just ever so lightly. And now we're going to seal it up with some Big Top by DIY. It's a very nice matte sealer, and it's very thin. It dries really quick, and I just want to seal all those edges in and seal the wood. I'm going to take some Tight Bond Quick and Thick glue, because it is an all-purpose glue, and a little bit of hot glue for a quick hold. And I'm just going to glue these metal pieces, these salvaged metal pieces from, I'm pretty sure they came from old lanterns or old lamps. I'm not sure. I got them on Whatnot in it was a lot that I bought, and it had a lot of different things in it. It was not a lot of pieces. It was, you know what I mean. I hope you're picking up what I'm putting down. Anyway, and then I just glued them down. I did put those transfers strategically so that they would show. Then I just had some little tacks or brads in my stash, and I just hammered them in those holes instead of screwing them in. And then I decided they looked a little too shiny, so I got some clear wax by DIY and just put a little bit of wax across the top of them, and then used the dark and decrepit dust in that wax so that it would stick to that wax pretty good. I don't really know if that's how you're supposed to use it or not, but that's how I did it. And it was perfect. It made them look just like the original pieces, and it blended perfectly. Not sure why I waited so long to show y'all this, but it's the Dark and Decrepit Dust by DIY. I get all my IOD and DIY products from Sammy at unicorndustdesigns.com. Please go over, check out her website. It's linked in the description box of every single one of my videos, so it's easy to find. Now I'm going to take a little bit of this crocheted ribbon. It looks like lace, like crocheted lace. I love this stuff. I get it at Dollar Tree. It's very affordable. I don't always find it there, but when I do, guess what? I buy a lot. And so I have a bunch in my stash. It comes in, sometimes I find it in different widths as well. So I made a little bow, and I'm just going to stick that in the top, and it's done. Okay, friends, now this was a process, so hang with me. My friend Janine that I met at Sammy's For the Love of Junk weekend brought me some of this. I believe it's a type of wainscoting, and it's kind of made from MDF, but it's beautiful, and I was trying to figure out what I could do with it. So I had these beautiful decoupage papers that I got these from Decoupage Central. That link is in the description box as well. Now, I'm going to use my Mod Podge and this wonderful fan brush that I got from Brandy at the DIY Struggle. Her website will be linked in the description box as well. Go check out that description box. It's full of good links and goodies and fun things. Now, I had measured this. I had put it down. I had pushed it down into those valleys, and it was going to fit. So I had no doubt that I was going to be okay with this. And so I'm going to show you this whole process on only one of these projects because I did the exact same thing for both of them. I messed up on both of them. So you're only going to see the process of one of them. I will spare you all of that. You're welcome. Okay, so you can see that I'm just going to put the Mod Podge on with this fantastic fan brush, and putting it all down in those little valleys of this little piece of salvaged wood that my friend gave me. And as I get to the bottom, I realize it doesn't go all the way to the bottom. That's the story of my life. This is how I craft. But no worries, I'm going to make it work. It was more work. It's always this way for me. This is just going to be a real quick project. I tell my husband, I'm going to go out to the craft cottage for a little while. I'll just be out there a little while. This project's going to be quick and easy. And he says, okay, I'll see you in the morning. But you can see the white on there that it did not go all the way to the bottom on either one of these. But I have a solution. I'm just going to rip it and tear it and think that I'm going to just dab a little paint on there and it's going to be fine. Well, the little bit of paint wasn't going to be fine because there's a lot of different colors in this road and all of it. So I tore it with my tweezers, which was a very quick process. That was quick. But then, while that was all kind of drying, I went ahead and prepared the board that I'm going to put it on. Now, these boards came from that swing set that we tore down about 5 years ago, and I'm still using wood from that. So don't throw out, don't discount it. So I'm trying to figure out how I want to put this on there, and I ended up putting the knot hole on the bottom. See, I'm going to flip it around. I'm going to glue these two pieces together, and then I think I did put some craft sticks on the back to help support it. I don't think I got that on camera, but I'm going to use some wood glue and some hot glue. Okay, kids in the back, do you remember why we do this? Shout it out now. You're right. The wood glue is going to be for long-term hold, and the hot glue is going to hold it until the wood glue dries. You were paying attention. I knew it. Okay, I'm going to get my little paint samples out. I painted all my DIY paints on these little tags so I could have paint samples, and I'm going to see which colors match up with the colors so I can go ahead and extend this decoupage paper out, which was ridiculous. I should have gone over to my scroll saw and just cut the bottom white piece of that off. But no, I'm extra. So I decided that I could match that up and that I could just paint that road all the way out to the edge. And I did, but it took me way too much time and way more effort than I wanted to spend on this super simple, easy DIY. So let me tell you this. Make sure that your paper is going to fit or paint it prior to. See, if I would have painted that dark layered chocolate prior to, then when I ripped it and laid it on there, it would have all been hunky-dory. It would have just been just fine. I think I just aged myself by saying hunky-dory. Anyway, it all turned out beautiful in the end. When you see the finished product, you're going to say, oh, Kendra, it's great. But yeah, it took way more time than I wanted it to. See, it looks beautiful. It looks like it's supposed to be that way. But I didn't want to spend that much time, friends. But it can be fixed. I'm just telling you, if you mess up a project, don't give up. Just keep going because I really wanted to put this decoupage paper on these pieces of wood. So now I'm going to take that big top sealer again and just give it a coat. Now it's already got that Mod Podge on it, which is, sealed, but I did, pounce all that paint all over it. So we're going to seal that paint in with that decoupage paper, and y'all, these turned out so pretty. They're so pretty. So I'm happy that I went ahead and spent the time and, painted that decoupage paper. Anyway, I'm really being a little bit dramatic, but that's kind of how I am. Okay, so we're just going to seal them up. Not sure why I'm showing you both of them and how I sealed them all up, but it was really late at night when I was editing this, so I probably dozed off right here and forgot to edit this out. But okay, so now we have this beautiful little wood piece, and I have two of them. I made two of them, one for each one of the churches. And we're going to just simply glue this down to the center. I love that knot hole in the middle. And then wait till you see what we're going to put on the bottom on each side of that knot hole. I'm going to put a whole lot, a boatload of this glue on here because I don't want this thing going anywhere. And it kind of bowed a little bit. So I'm going to put a bunch of glue, and then I'm just going to press it down really hard and hold it till that hot glue dries. And then it's going to stick good. I'm going to take some clear wax by DIY and wax the board. Now, why didn't I do that before I put the little decoupage church piece on? Because the glue doesn't really want to stick to the wax very good. So that's why I waited until after I put my dimensional piece on there. Now, I do not know what these pieces are called, but I got these in one of those salvaged lots. And I know they hold little pipes that have like wires that run through them, like electrical wiring that runs through a little pipe. They hold them on the wall. I do know that. But they have been painted over several times with white paint, and it's all thick and crusty, and I love it. I'm here for it. And I tried a lot of different brads and nails to see what I liked best. I had these little upholstery, I think they're like, they're some kind of tacks. They're just called premium tacks, I think. I get them at Walmart. And yeah, that looks okay, but not really the look I was going for. And then I have these tacks. I want to say I got these off Temu. And they were in a multi-pack. And there were some gold ones. And yeah, I didn't really like it. That was a reject. And then there was this copper one. Or was it like, yeah, it's kind of a copper one. And I really liked how that one looked, but not really what I was going for. And then I tried the silver one, wherever that silver one is, right there. And it was okay too. But I really ended up liking that. I really considered that copper one. I really liked the way that the colors matched up there. But I ended up going with those, the tacks. I think they're called cut tacks. Now, I have this little tool. I don't even know what it's called, but it's not sharp, but you can punch it. I think it's called a punch. You can punch it, and it'll make a really nice indentation in your wood. And so you can use it like if you're going to need to start a screw or if you want to drill into some wood, but you don't want to, miss the mark. This is a really nice way to get something centered or get something right where you want it. And these little tacks are kind of hard to get, because they're so small, they're hard to hang on to. So I did use my needle nose pliers, and I did have that it makes a little indentation for the little tack to sit in. So I did this process for all of these little holders. I'm going to call them my little holders, and wait till you see what I put in them. They're so cute. You might have already seen it in the thumbnail. I'm not sure. I put it on the thumbnail, actually. But anyway, I did it for both. And like I said, what I'm doing on one, I did on both. I did not want to make it redundant and hard to watch. Sometimes for myself, and I know everybody has different preferences when they watch, but for myself, I'm a little impatient. That's one of the fruit of the spirit that I'm working on, is patience. But, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. Actually, there's probably a lot of those I should work on, but that's that's part of my prayer, is that God will work on me and help me with those. So let me know in the comments below if you have one of the fruit that you know, have more trouble with than others. I'm going to just take these 3 tiny little pieces of scrap greenery, and I just put a little piece of glue on my silicone mat because it's going to peel right up. And I'm going to just put that twine down, and then it'll just peel right up. And then I'm just going to wrap that twine around the bottom to make almost like a little, I don't know, it kind of looks like a little, you know, like the little dirt ball, like the bulb. And then it almost looks like a little vase. I don't know, but you're not really going to see it. So I did that, and then I cut it off, glued it down, and then we're just going to pop it into those little holders. They're going to be our little holders. And I'm just going to glue it underneath there, and you're really not going to see. I mean, depending on if you hang it and where you hang it, you might see it, but it's going to be twine. And I did put a little hanger, sawtooth hanger on the back. You could make it a shelf sitter leaner, or you could hang it. Now I'm going to make a little finger bow. It's going to be fast. I do have linked in the description box my slowed down version of how to make finger bows. So easy, so fun. They're so cute. And we're going to just glue that to the center. And I think I decided I didn't like how the tails look, so I cut the tails off. It wouldn't lay right, wouldn't lay how I wanted it to. So pretty sure, let's see. Yep, cut them off, or cut one of them off. Maybe I cut both of them off. Let's see what I did. Let's watch this together. Okay, I cut both of them off. I did. And then I'm going to, what am I going to do? Nope, I decided I'm going to put that there. Nope, not long enough. Let's just throw that to the side and get a whole nother new piece. So we're going to get a piece and just put it across there. I'm going to take a little piece of twine and pinch this up in the middle. Well, first I decided I'm going to glue that down because that was a distraction for me. Who knows? Who knows where the thought process is? Okay, I'm going to pinch that up in the middle. See if it looks good. Yep. Take a piece of twine. Well, let's get one long enough. Okay, find the middle. Find the middle. Pinch it up. You can see that I folded it so I can see where the middle is. Pinch it up. Put a piece of twine around it. Tighten a knot. So there's my middle. Okay, let's just fuss with it and get it perfect. Just pinch it up. I tell you, I was editing this late, and so y'all are getting all the raw footage here. Okay, we're going to put a little bit of hot glue right there. Glue it down. And then we're going to glue the bow. No, first, I think we're going to get some pip berries. I had these little green and white pip berries that are so cute, and I thought they would add to that. I don't know why, I just thought they looked good with that. So I'm going to untangle it off camera, hopefully. Hopefully I didn't leave that in. Come on, seriously? Okay, I didn't. I just cut it the length I wanted it, wrapped the ends of it around a pencil so that it looked, you know, like it was growing that way. I'm going to tie it with the twine in the center, and then I'm going to hot glue it to keep it in place where I want it. Press it down in there, and then trim that twine off, and then glue our little bow in. And this project is complete. It's finished. It was a labor of love, but I love how they turned out. Oh yes, I did add a little greenery behind the bow. I forgot about that. And then I ripped off a few of those little white pip berries and poked them in on top of the greenery. I just couldn't stop. I just kept adding stuff. And everything was so little and so cute. And I just kept picking and poking, and finally had to just stop. I said to myself, self, you need to just stop. So finally I just decided that it was enough. So there we go. And this is how it turned out. Did I do something else? I don't think so. Here we go. Here's your final product. we are going to do the very similar process as a previous DIY with these same salvaged wood pieces. Now, these blocks are a little bigger. You can see they're like 5 1/4 by 12-ish and about 1.5 inches thick. I left this very rustic because this is what I like. This makes it salvaged. This screw, I hammered it really hard in there, and I grinded it down a little bit so that it would be smooth. And then this beautiful sunflower paper, this is from Decoupage Central as well. I'm going to take Dark and Decrepit by DIY, and I always use gloves when I use this because otherwise my hands are so dry, it will just get in my little dry hands and very hard for me to wash it off. So I'm going to use these little gloves. Now I'm going to use this chippy brush, and I'm not dry brushing, but I'm using a very light hand. And I'm going from the outside of this board to the inside. See, I'm dragging it from the outside to the inside. And even though it looks like I'm going back and forth, I'm only dragging the brush from the outside to the inside. Okay, now I'm really measuring really tight with this piece of paper because I don't want the same thing to happen that happened last time. So I'm really pressing it down in there and holding it down, and it is not wide enough. So I already know this time that I need to leave a little space on each side. And guess what? I need to paint this piece of wood before I decoupage. So I'm going to take Sandy Blonde by DIY, and I'm going to give this one good coat of paint. And this is what it looks like. It's beautiful color. It works well with this decoupage paper. Now I'm going to take Mod Podge, which is a great medium to decoupage with. There are other mediums as well. You use your favorite one. If you have a favorite decoupage medium besides Mod Podge, go ahead and drop it down in the comments. I'd like to know what you use. I'm going to wet this, give it a little spritz with my water mister, and take the tweezers, and I'm just going to pull off all of this excess on the sides. Now the top I'm going to cut with my scissors because it can be a smooth cut. This I want to be frayed. And there are a lot of different ways techniques that I use to do this as well. But this, I didn't want to take off very much of the paper. I needed all of it that I could get. So I just wanted a little bit off there. So that's why I was using the tweezers. I'm going to spray this whole thing with my mister. Now the mister gives a very fine mist, and that's why I like to use it. Now I'm going to dry off my table so that when I put my wood piece over there, my wood piece doesn't get all wet. Now I'm going to lay it down. I'm going to lay my decoupage paper over here so it will just be ready to go. And I'm going to do the same method we did on our last piece. And I'm going to use my decoupage medium, which is Mod Podge, and I'm going to give it a nice thick coat. And I'm going to remember at some point that I need to leave a little bit on the edge. And then I'm going to smooth it down with the Mod Podge that's left on my brush. And I'm going to make sure that it goes down into that little valley in between the humps. And yeah, you're going to see my head. Yep, there's my highlights. You're welcome. And it takes me a minute to get started here, but you'll see. We'll get it going. We'll get it going. And then I'm not going to show you this whole entire process because I already showed you on the last one, and it's the exact same thing. Put down your Mod Podge, smooth it out with your fan brush, and all fan brushes are not created equal. So if you say, my fan brush doesn't work good for that, well, it's because it's not a TDS fan brush. The DIY Struggle fan brushes are, I don't know how she created them or who created them for her or what, but they just work fantastic with this process. And so it makes it all nice and smooth, no wrinkles. I did get a tiny little bit of wrinkling with this, but you know what? I was really okay with it because it looks rustic and it just worked okay with it. It was very minimal. Now, while this paper's wet, I'm just going to rip it off. I'm very gently, I've got this sped up, so it looks like I'm really ripping it, but I gently ripped that paper off, and I liked the fact that it just kind of wrapped around the edge a tiny little bit. I was okay with that, and So on the top and the bottom, I went ahead and ripped it off the edges. I thought I cut it. I told you I cut it earlier, but I didn't cut it. I ripped it. I forgot. I'm sorry. I'm old. I'm entitled to forget. I'm not old. I say I'm old. I'm not old. I'm young. Depends on who you're talking to. It's a relative, right? Okay, I have these resin pieces from some IOD molds. I can't even remember which molds they are. I know that oval one is from the new brooches mold. It's beautiful. I don't know. I think my friend Myra may have poured me the other ones. I used gravel road to paint it. Now I'm going to use the iron patina paint, and we are going to make them look like rusted metal. Yes, we are. So I'm going to pounce this all over and give it one good coat. And then once I do that, I'm going to set it aside to dry. And once it is completely dry, be patient. Working on that patience, right? Sometimes I have to wait till the next day. I just have to walk away. And you can dry it with the heat gun, but it gets a little sticky. Okay, we're doing the second coat now. We're ready for the second coat. It's dry. And I'm just going to pounce it on there pretty thick and pretty random. I mean, like, it doesn't have to be full coverage, but I want it pretty. I mean, you don't want to be like willy-nilly, but get it on there good and get it on there fast, and you don't want it to dry. You want it to be all moist. All of it needs to be moist. Okay. And then we're going to take the spray patina that comes with the Dixie Belle. It's all part of the system. And I'm going to use the blue and the green. Now, the blue turns it like the brown rust, and the green, it's opposite. I don't know. The blue turns it green, and the green turns it brown. It's kind of weird. Yeah, the blue one is the one that does the like verdigris. I looked that word up, how to pronounce it. Verdigris. Okay, so this one kind of spurts out more, so it's really messy. So I had it in this little plastic tray because I had it on a metal tray, and it's kind of ate the metal. It kind of, yeah. And then when I start using my heat gun, because that really helps it process, it started melting my tray. So I had to take it out and put it on some paper. Anyway, you're going to see how beautiful this turns out. You would never know it's resin. They look like metal pieces. They are absolutely gorgeous. I sealed them with clear wax. And then now we're going to adhere these two. I've got those edges that had the screws in them and the holes in them are on the top and the bottom. And we're just going to go ahead. I don't know why I decided to smear the paint this time. I normally don't. But these are pretty thick and heavy, so maybe I thought that would be a better idea. But we're going to do our same method that we always do to adhere things. And we're just going to smush them together good and hold it for a few seconds till that dries. And then now we're going to assemble everything. This is the fun part, is embellishing and getting everything ready for the final. But look at that. That looks like an old piece of rusty, crusty metal. I love it. Love it, love it. We're going to use Tite Bond, quick and thick, and hot glue, just like before. Just like before. I sped it up super fast because you know the process. You know the process. I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to press it down nice and firmly till that hot glue dries, which, you know, hot glue dries really quick. And then we're going to do the same thing for our little resin pieces. Some Tite Bond quick and thick. Some hot glue on all the pieces. And then we're going to put a bow on top. And I'm going to use some ribbon that I've had in my stash for probably, a good 3 years. And it's from Sam's Club. And do not snooze on the ribbon from Sam's Club because it's like $7 a roll, and it is a huge roll. There is a lot of ribbon. I can't talk. There's a lot of ribbon on that roll. And look how pretty this is. It's so neutral. I have used this ribbon in so many different DIYs because it's so neutral. There I go, cutting off that tail again because I didn't like how it was hanging, but I only cut one this time, and then I bunched it up and glued it up to gather it up there. And then I just glued that behind the ribbon because that's really where I wanted it to be. Now let's see. I think I put a little twine bow in the center and that was done. I don't think I put any greenery on this one because I just wanted it to be more rustic. I just want to pop on and say I hope that you're enjoying this video. If it's your first time to watch my channel, welcome. We are so glad you're here at Late Night Creations. My name is Kendra and we love to create with wood, thrifted items, salvaged items, spindles, chiffon ribbon, all of those beautiful things. If you've been around for a while, thanks for being here. I really appreciate you. Let's get back to crafting. First of all, I'm going to show you all of these items that I'm going to be using. I'm not going to be using those two large pieces on the left in this video. I'm going to be using this little piece that was the armchair piece of an old vintage chair. These were the holes that helped prop it up to the chair. I sanded it down a little bit so that it will stand up like so. This is the right arm and the left arm. I'm going to be using those. These were some legs to a table or some piece of furniture, but I never got around to finishing those, and so they'll be in a future video, so stay tuned. A little vintage spindle and a block of wood. We're going to start with these two armchair pieces. I'm going to take the first one outside, spray it with a coat of spray paint, primer, white primer, not the back, just the top and the sides, and we'll get started on this one. We're going to give it a good coat of beadboard by DIY. I'm going to be using this brooch on the IOD Vintage Brooches mold. I'm also going to be using this paint inlay, Ditzy Blooms, and this is a beautiful little floral background. Now I painted this with beadboard. I gave it one good solid coat, and I'm going to just cut off a piece that's going to fit. Now, if I had this to do over again, I would have traced it a little closer to the size that I wanted, but I didn't. Live and learn. Okay, so, and learn from my mistakes. But it turns out fine. It turns out beautiful because, you know, that's what we do. We make it work. Now, I'm going to give this, it's already got all of its coats of paint. But to make this paint inlay work, we're going to give it a nice thick coat, even coat of paint. And then you saw that I spritzed that paint inlay before I started. Now, where that was a little bit lower there, I'm going to go ahead and give it some little relief cuts so that it will lay down there nicely. Now, I'm going to take a soft little cloth. Oh, before I do that, I'm going to cut a little of that excess off because that paint inlay has paint on it. And so it's going to touch that and get paint everywhere. Everywhere that it touches, it's going to put paint on it. Okay, once I got that all pressed in, I'm going to put it aside to dry. Now we're going to take this little resin mold and we're going to use another paint inlay. Now I'm going to use my fingernail to mark where I'm going to cut it out. I'm going to cut the little bit larger piece, and then I'm going to take some smaller detail scissors and cut that little circle out so that it fits just inside this little brooch. I'm going to paint this entire brooch with beadboard. I may have already done that. No, yes, I did. I painted the entire thing with beadboard. And then just the centerpiece, just the center of it, I'm going to give it a coat. And while it's still wet, I'm going to put this moistened paint inlay, the paint inlay, the side that has the dried paint on it, I'm going to moisten it. I'm going to spritz it with my Mr. bottle, I can't even think, and then tap it into the wet paint. Now that they're completely dry, I let them dry for several hours because I let them dry naturally while I was working on something else. I'm going to mist it again, and then I'm going to just dab off the excess. And I'm going to peel back, and you can see how absolutely beautiful this turns out. trying to keep my hands out of the way so you can see how gorgeous this paint inlay is. It looks like I hand painted that on there. I'm going to dry it down with my heat gun really good because I want this to be completely dry before I go on to the next step. I'm going to do the same process with the little brooch. I'm going to re-wet it once it's completely dry. I'm going to wipe off the excess water, dabbing it gently, and then I'm going to take my little tweezers and grab the edge of that little inlay paper and lift it off. Look, it's so gorgeous. So pretty. Now I'm going to take some clear wax and I'm just going to wax around the outside. I do not like to use wax on my paint inlays because I feel like that it always smears the paint for me. So I like to give it a coat of some type of matte spray to seal it. So I don't know that I got that on camera or told you about it, but that's what I usually like to do. So I used the grunge gray and then wiped back the excess. That's what I did for the little brooch. Now that this is completely dry, I'm going to take my little finger sander and I'm just going to scuff up the edges, and I'm going to go around the edges. And then I'm going to very lightly, with a very light hand, and this is a probably 220 grit sandpaper, and I'm going to very, very lightly go over the top of it and just, grunge it up a little bit. Now I'm going to take the gray grunge Dixie wax by Dixie Belle and put a little bit on here and there, and I clear waxed all the white and then did the same thing. Put some of the gray around here and there and then just wiped it back. I'm going to use some Titebond Quick and Thick and some hot glue, and I'm going to glue the little brooch to the top of this arm handle, our little piece, and I'm going to take some, you guessed it, chiffon ribbon and a little bit of this crocheted lace ribbon and tie a little bow to the bottom of it, and this project is going to be complete. You can use this, you can set it up because I made it where it can set up, or you can hang it on the wall. For our next little piece of vintage salvaged wood, this is the one of those other little arm pieces. We're just going to take and we're going to sand it down and get all the little grunge off of it. It didn't have a lot of shellac. It had been sitting outside in the weather, and I just love how absolutely beautiful this piece of wood is. So I'm not going to paint it, not going to do anything to it except take some Iron Orchid Design IOD transfers. These are absolutely beautiful. They're from the latest release, and just look, they look like watercolors. They are the florals, the butterflies, the greenery. They're just absolutely beautiful. So I'm going to pick some florals that fit on here. I decided to piece these together. That's the beauty of the transfers, is you can just cut them and make them work for you. So if it's your first time here or you're new here, welcome in. My name is Kendra. You're watching Late Night Creations. I'm just going to clean that off with a nice soft cloth and get it nice and clean where there's no residue or anything, and the wood is going to be nice and smooth. I really buffed it good with that cloth, cleaned it off. And I'm going to take the transfers and I'm going to take them off that backing sheet, and on this little vellum piece I'm going to just press with the little tool that comes with it. It's just a little plastic stick, but it works great. You can actually use a lot of other tools to do this with, but this one comes with it. It's handy, so why not use it? And then you're just going to gently lift it and make sure that all the pieces stick down. If they don't, just rub it a little bit more. This has a lot of little thin details, and that is what makes this one a little more difficult, and I have to keep rubbing it. When there's a whole lot more of the transfer, it is so much easier to transfer. I'm going to take that vellum piece, I'm going to rub it, which we call burnishing, to get all the little extra glue pieces and all off of there, and make sure that it is all pressed into the wood nicely. I'm going to continue that with all the pieces, layering it and making it look exactly how I want it. Sometimes I just use my fingernail too. And then you're going to see how absolutely beautiful this is. I love these florals. You know, it kind of reminds me of the scripture where it says the flowers will fade away, but God's word will not. And I've been in vacation Bible school this week, and the kids have been learning God's word, and it just makes me think about that, you know, the flowers are going to fade and things will die, but God's word is going to stand forever. I love that. So these florals, just when I was working with them, kind of reminded me about that. So I'm going to take some clear wax, and I'm going to clear wax this whole thing, all the wood, over the transfers and everything. Then I get out my little box of chiffon ribbon, and I was trying to find some colors that matched. I was hoping some of those pinks matched, but they didn't. And so I really thought the green was going to match. I did not like the way the green looked. So I chose, this is kind of this is a little bit like a chiffon ribbon, but it's not sheer. It's absolutely beautiful. I thought this looked like a bouquet of roses when it stands up. It does have you can prop it up, or I'm going to use that hole to hang it up. Okay, stay with me on this little DIY. It is two-sided, and I kind of go back and forth on the editing of this, but stay with me because we're going to end up with a double-sided, beautiful piece of home decor. I sand down this little spindle and get it where I can paint it. I painted it with 2 coats of sandy blonde. And then I mixed up some aviary by DIY and some Saltwash. And I mixed about equal parts because I wanted this paint to be thick. I wanted some texture. You could absolutely use baking soda or some other, whatever you want to add. But Saltwash is intended for this use, and to me, it just works better. But if you prefer to use something else, by all means, use something else. Now, I'm using an old stencil brush, and I'm just globbing it on there. Now, I decided I was going to use some Mod Podge, and, I was out of school glue. I did finally pick some up, so I'll be using the school glue because it's much cheaper. But I wanted to create some crackle with this texture. I just wanted a lot of different texture, a lot of different stuff in here, but it didn't quite work the way I wanted it to. So I started putting this little mixture of paint I mixed some sandy blonde and some beadboard together in that little cup. And I thought, well, I'll just put it on the parts where I put the Mod Podge. I'll put it kind of thick, and then I'll just lightly paint over the other parts. And then I'll just put some heat to it, and I'll get some crackle. I'll get some, if you put globs of paint and then you put the heat to it, kind of bubbles up, and I could scrape it off. Oh, well, it just kind of didn't work the way I wanted it to. But in the end, I really like how it turned out. I love that. So it wasn't exactly what I had in mind, but I ended up loving how it turned out. Okay, and I did clear wax it to seal it. I'm going to take Sandy Blonde right out of the bottle, and I'm going to paint this little block of wood with one really nice thick coat. Just one thick coat of coverage. And now I'm going to take some beadboard and some Sandy Blonde, and I'm going to mix it together to make this beautiful color, which I used on the spindle. See, I told you I'm kind of going backwards, back and forth. Now I'm going to take some Mod Podge, and I'm putting a pretty thick coat. Some places I do it thicker, some places I do it thinner because we're going to get some crackle. Now, school glue, Elmer's school glue works great for this process. But like I said earlier, I've been out of school glue, so I just using this Mod Podge. I'm going to take that mixture of paint that I mixed up, and I'm using a chippy brush, but I'm going to put a thick coat on there with the chippy brush. So some of that other paint is showing through still. And then I use my heat tool, and this is in real time. I'm showing you how quickly and how beautiful you get that crackle. And then I'm just going to take some more of that paint and that chippy brush, and I'm just going to dry brush a little bit around all the edges and then the back side. Because remember, we're going to make this a two-sided DIY. So I'm just going to do it just a little bit around the edges. I'm not going to do it very heavy, just very lightly. And then we are going to use this beautiful piece of inlay from that same inlay package that I showed you earlier, the Ditzy Blooms. And I'm going to use a big top sealer as the medium. I'd never done this before, but I wanted to try it because I wanted that look behind it that we have on this piece of wood. So I put a pretty thick coat on there. And then while this is wet, you know, I spritzed it down so the paint inlay, the paint on that paper is wet now. You know, the paint inlays are actually dried paint on the paper. I did not get this completely straight, but it looks great. I'm not even going to fuss about that. And then I take my paper, I press it into that big top sealer that's on the wood. I press it in nice and firmly. I even open up the cloth. Oh, I'm going to show you. I open it up and then I just kind of press it down in there. I do know people who will use a brayer and rub it, you know, roll it in there, but I didn't feel like that was quite necessary. So while that's drying, we are going to take this little resin mold I made. I do not even know which mold this is from, and I didn't even show you. I can't even remember. Oh dear. Maybe I'll put it in the description box if I remember. It's absolutely beautiful. And then I'm going to take that mixture that we mixed up with the beadboard and the sandy blonde. It's just a little bit of sandy blonde and some beadboard, and I'm going to dry brush to bring out the details of that beautiful floral in there. Okay, this is completely dry, and then I'm going to spritz it down. That seems like kind of a silly process, but this is how it works, guys, and you're going to see how beautiful it is. I'm going to pat off all that excess water and then peel back. This peel and reveal never gets old. These inlays are to die for. Oh my goodness. I just have to clap and give it a thumbs up. I also have this little lock and key mold, and I painted it with aviary, did the same process I did with the little floral one. And I'm going to take a piece of chiffon ribbon, cut it in half, and then I had this teeny tiny little brass key. I believe I got those off of Amazon in a package of random size ones, and I have some of those linked in my Amazon storefront in the description box if you want to check those out. And just made some little bows. And if you want to check out my description box, I have a lot of really good websites of friends who have things for sale, like Brandy from the DIY Struggle has a beautiful website with decoupage papers and stencils, and Sammy from Unicorn Dust Designs sells IOD and DIY products and a lot of beautiful thrift flipped items. And I have my Amazon storefront. If I mention that I get things off of Amazon, or you see a lot of the things that I craft with, most likely you're going to find it in my Amazon storefront. So you can go ahead and click on any of those links down there if you want to, if you're interested. They are there just for you. So I'm just going to glue all these pieces together to make this look adorable. Then we're going to flip it over to the other side. And we are going to make a little bow out of some chiffon ribbon. And I absolutely love how this looks. This is so me right here. This is my style. So we're going to use the Tap Bond Quick and Thick for a good solid hold, a little hot glue for a quick hold, so it'll hold it down while the other glue dries. My other hot glue gun I had left at the church because we were using it for VBS stuff and Vacation Bible School. And so I had to drag out this old one that I don't really love, but it worked. It worked just fine. And we're just going to glue all our little pieces together, and then we're just going to glue this little spindle for a little pedestal to help it stand up on its own, and this DIY will be done. It is so cute. And I love double-sided DIYs. Let me know if you like double-sided decor, because it's like you get tired of that side, you just flip it to the other. These are the two pieces that I'm going to be working with today. You may have seen them in a previous video that I was going to create with. Never got around to creating with them, so today is the day. I also have this beautiful finial that I picked up thrifting, and I'm going to use some French millinery and vintage linen by DIY. My vintage linen is almost gone. I should have just poured the French millinery in the vintage linen jar. Would have been much easier, but I didn't. But I mixed it up really good, and I dried it on the stick I started with just to make sure it was the right shade, and it came out this really beautiful, very, very pale, almost lavender. So I don't know why I'm flipping it around and looking at, I do not know why I'm inspecting these two pieces so harshly, but I'm going to give both of them 2 coats of this, I believe. I believe I gave it 2 coats, or maybe 1 full coat and then another little touch-up coat where I felt like I needed it. This piece of wood, after I sanded it all down, was very thirsty, so it needed some good coats. Now I'm going to take the Elmer's school glue, and we're going to do the crackle effect with the Elmer's school glue. Now I just put it in a few places very heavy because I didn't want crackle all over. I just wanted it to look worn in a few places. Hindsight, I would have just put it all over and then just put it, you know, like globbed it on, for lack of better vocabulary, in those places where I'm placing it. Not sure why I had this thought process, but yeah, it turns out good, but that's just, you know, what I'm thinking. Then I went over it again while it was still wet with the French millinery, and it turned out good. You can see that beautiful crackle right there, but I don't know. I just think it would have been better if I had done it, you know, my normal, usual way. But I tried something new, and you live and learn, right? We don't learn new things unless we try. So I have this piece of styrofoam that I use frequently to help me hold things while I paint, and I decided to use it. So now I'm all done with my painting and my crackle, and I think it looks beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. I'm going to take the Grunge Gray by Dixie Belle. I love this wax. I'm going to take the makeup brush that I love to use to wax with and to stencil with and to paint with. They are in my Amazon store if you're interested in purchasing some. I will say that they are better quality than the cheap ones that you get off of Temu or Shein. You can get them off of those places very inexpensively. But you get what you pay for. Here's the difference after the wax. And now I'm going to use this Ditzy Blooms Inlay by IOD. If you're interested in getting any DIY paints or IOD products, I have Sammy's website linked in every description box of every video that I make, and it's www.unicorndustdesigns.com. She has a beautiful website, so be sure and go check it out. I went ahead and cut pretty close to my image all the way around because it just works better that way. It leaves less of a little edge around it when you transfer it on. I'm going to use Big Top Sealer because I don't want to use paint. I'm going to spritz the paint inlay side of my paint inlay, and then I'm just going to put some, I was just going to put the Big Top right where I was going to put the inlay, And then I thought better, and I'm glad I did. So I'm going to put the big top all around, then I'm going to put a thicker coat right where I'm going to put the inlay. Then I like to use my tweezers to pick it up because, you know, I have this silicone mat and sometimes it gets a little stuck to it. But I do like to use my tweezers as with little intricate pieces. Now I'm just going to lay that on there into that wet big top and my wet inlay. And I'm going to press it firmly without moving it because that paint inlay is wet paint and we don't want it to smear. I'm going to take my little heat tool and I'm going to dry it so that I can move on to the next. I didn't dry it completely, but get it dry. I don't want it to smear as I work on the other edges. I'm going to dry it down with my heat tool, and you can see that it's white. It no longer looks wet, so it's completely dry. And it sounds very redundant and kind of silly, but now we're gonna wet it again. And I wet it pretty good and let it sit for just, 60 seconds or so. And then here I go with my little tweezers. But this was a pretty intricate little piece, and I really don't want to rip it because you can use these inlays more than one time. That's what makes them feel a little more affordable. And look how beautiful that is on this piece of wood. It's so gorgeous. And then I'm going to take that, once I get that on all four sides, I'm not going to show you that because it's the same process and it gets a little redundant to watch. But I'm going to take that gray wax and I'm going to put that gray wax all over once that inlay is completely dry. You want that inlay to be so dry because it is paint and you don't want it to smear. And I rarely ever use wax. I think the wax worked on this because I used the big top. And I was very careful about putting it over the floral parts. But it did work. Okay, so I made a hole in it and I screwed the finial down. And this was the bottom of my piece. This was going to be the bottom of my piece. Not sure why I did this. Then I realized, oh, this is the bottom of my piece. I did not fill the hole in because it was going to be the bottom. The top already had that hole in there. That was the whole point of me doing it because it already had the hole in there. Oh my goodness. Okay, so no worries. I just glad I caught it. I'm going to take some beautiful chiffon ribbon. If you've been around very long, you know I love it. Tie it in a little bow, and voila, we are done. This second piece also got a good sanding with the orbital sander, and now I'm going to use the Sweet Pickins milk paint. This is my first time using it, and I'm using suitcase and window pane. So you hang in here with me and walk through me with this, and you can holler at the screen telling me what I did wrong. You can leave comments down below telling me what I did wrong, whatever you need to do. But I used equal parts of the powder and warm water, just like the instructions say. I mixed it thoroughly. I used a little whisk. I used a little stick. I mixed it thoroughly and I let it set about 15-20 minutes. And then I painted this little piece of wood with it. No crackle whatsoever. So then I took the window pane, which is what I was going to do, two different colors. This was the intent. And I was really hoping for some good crackle here. Some good something, and really, so I took my heat gun and really tried to force some in there, and I didn't really get a whole lot, so I don't really know what I did wrong. This lighter color was much thinner, and I mixed it the exact same way, but it was much thinner. I really like how it looks. Then you can see the brown through, but I don't really know. I'm going to try it again. I'm not giving up, but this stuff is not cheap, and I don't know. I've watched my friend Bailey over at Reclaim Grace do it, and hers always looks absolutely beautiful. So I decided to get my little sanding tool out and just sand the edges, just start sanding. So it really hit the edges really good. And there were some places where it did crackle a little bit. And so I just focused on going over that a little bit heavier, and it turned out great, but it just wasn't really what I was expecting. So if you have tips or pointers, please leave them in the comment section. Now I'm going to use this beautiful Shade and Song IOD stamp. I've never used it before, so I did have to get my 220 grit sandpaper and lightly sand over the top of them to condition them before I use them. I'm going to use the black permanent IOD ink, and you can see on my paper there that I practiced a little bit before I did it on my project, which I do quite often. And now I'm just going to ink it up with my black ink, and I'm using one of the thin mounts, and you can see I'm trying to position it where it's going to be where I want it, making sure I have ink on all the parts I'm going to need it. And there, we're going to put it right there. I'm going to hold it down and not let it move, making sure that everything's making contact. Then I reach underneath and wrap it around the edge. Then I kind of get smart and decide that I don't really want to use the thin mount, that I need these stamps to be a little more flexible. I do use the smaller little piece of plastic as a thin mount for the bird, but then I decide I don't really want to use it because I need the stamps to be a little more flexible because I want them to wrap around. See, I wrapped that bird's tail around the corner. Look how beautiful that is. I love these stamps. Love my IOD products. They are such quality. They are a little pricey and they're a little more expensive than you will pay for some other ones, but so worth it. Now I'm going to use another stamp off of that sheet and do the same process. Now, I'm not going to show you doing this entire project with the stamps, but I'm going to show you how I just keep adding little pieces here and there until I get the look I want. And it's all personal preference. And see, I bend it around so that it goes around the edge of that block. And then sometimes you just need a little piece of another, I just needed another little piece of that branch, so I just inked up the end and stamped it on there. And then sometimes I like to just do little bits and pieces like they're coming off the edge. I do like to dry the ink really good because I'm going to be laying it on that side. I don't want it to smear. And so see, I'm just going to ink up the edge of that stamp and make it look like it's coming off the side. So you can just fill in some of those little gaps where it looks empty. See, this looks like it's coming down. I love doing that. There you go. Another little piece of florals coming down. Okay, enough stamping. Now we're going to go to this little, I've had this in my stash. I'm pretty sure it came from Dollar Tree. It was like a little jewelry holder or incense holder or something. And I'm taking some white chalk paint, and I really was trying to go for this little whitewash to make it look a little bit like, concrete, or that look. I think you know the look I'm talking about. But it was a little bit, had a little bit of a slick finish on it. So it wasn't really getting the look that I wanted. But I just kept putting it on there. I let it dry a little bit. And I tried to wipe it off a little bit, and just, I was kind of getting frustrated. It really wasn't doing what I wanted it to. So I just kept on, and then I finally decided I'm just going to let the paint dry on there, as much paint as I got on there. And then I took white wax, and then I just thought, well, I'm just going to wax the paint that's on there. And then I really like how it turned out. Like, I just kept layering stuff. So don't give up. If you have a project that is not turning out exactly like you want it to, don't give up. Just keep going. That's just how it is, in our walk in life. We just keep going, just keep praying, just keep asking God to help you, and He will. Don't give up. Just keep going. It'll turn out beautiful. I'm going to clear wax this piece to seal in that permanent ink and our paint and make it look beautiful, and just wipe it down and buff it out. And then we're just going to glue this little dish to the top. But there wasn't much surface because it was just that little ledge, and I was afraid I wouldn't be able to get the glue just on that. So that little recessed part, I went over in my stash, and because I don't ever throw anything away, friends, I had this little cardboard piece that came in something, and I'm just going to glue it to the center so that it makes it flush, and then I'll put glue on it, and then it will adhere to our wood block. I'm going to use a combination of Titebond Quick and Thick and some hot glue. So the hot glue will glue it quickly and the Titebond will glue it permanently. This thing is not going anywhere. Then we're going to take what my friend Brandy calls messy moss. I love that. The very first time I heard her say it, it stuck like Chuck. I'll never forget it. Just going to glue that in. I had a few of these little eggs. I'm just going to pop those in there. And we're going to put a little bit of twine around this. And you can't see where I'm putting it because I have overhead camera. But trust me, it's going to look cute. Then I made just a little finger bow off camera. I do have a video that is, I believe it's in the description box. I think I have it defaulted that it's going to be in every description box. It's how to make finger bows and tassels. And you can check out that video if you want. I'm just going to glue that little bow right there. You'll see it in just a second. Hang on, friends. It's coming. And then I'm going to put just a little bit of that moss around underneath because, you know, birds are not always really neat with their nests. So I just thought that looked cute. And this is how it turned out. I found these little letters at Pop Shelf, and I bought an H, an O, an M, and an E to spell home. And I knew I wanted to do some type of project, and when I got them, all of the letters are not the same color. You'll see that a little later. These were some resin pours that I did with an IOD mold, and this is just a piece of salvaged wood that was not treated lumber. It was just some pieces of wood that had been cut and scrapped. It does look like that it has been out in the weather, excuse me, so it has been weathered a little bit, which is, you know, what we like around here. And so I'm just going to take this little hand sander that I have, I got off Amazon, and just sand it down a little bit and make it a little bit smooth to work with. Here you can see that the colors of these are different. Now I picked them up all in the same area. All of the tags look exactly the same, so I'm not quite sure why they look a little bit different. But we're going to make them look all the same. We're going to take the Dixie Belle patina paint in iron. I'm just going to take one of these little sponge pouncer, dabber brushes, and we're going to paint it with the patina, the iron patina by Dixie Belle, because we're going to rust all of this up. And you've seen me do this in previous videos, and this is become quickly one of my new favorite methods. I'm in love with this, so just be prepared to see it a lot. I found a local stockist for Dixie Belle, so I am able to just pop over and purchase products from him. Now, this is the second coat. On the second coat, you apply the spray while the second coat is still wet. Now, I'm lifting these off of this paper towel because, you know, I don't want them to stick. Okay, I'm going to take the patina spray in green. I'm going to shake it a little bit, and I am going to put it on the spray, not the stream, and I'm just going to give it all a quick little spray. I'm also going to take the spray patina spray in blue, which actually turns it green, which is kind of interesting. The green one turns it kind of orange, and this one is going to have that green turquoise patina look. And I'm just going to let it dry. I did dry it with my heat gun a little bit, And then I got pulled out of the craft cottage for some reason or another. I can't remember why right now. And I had to let it dry overnight. You can see how rusty crusty it is on that paper towel. Isn't that some goodness? Now, I want my screws to match. We can't have them looking all shiny and new. So I did the same procedure on the heads of the screws. Now I'm going to use some Elmer's school glue, and I ran out of Elmer's school glue, so part of it I used Mod Podge. They both work the same. Now this method, in case you don't know, wherever you leave the glue or the Mod Podge thicker, you're going to have more crackle. So you put the paint on while your glue is still wet. You do not go over the glue more than once. One stroke, maybe a second little dab here and there, but if you go back and forth, it's going to drag it and you're going to mess it up. So I did that, and now I'm just going to kind of go around the edges. I'm just working in a little section at a time because I knew I didn't have much glue. And I'm going to use the Mod Podge. Plus, I was really trying to see what it was going to look like just on the wood without putting a base coat of paint down first. And you know what? It worked really good. It turned out really good. So you can see that crackle, and the heat gun actually helps the crackle to, crackle a little better. I don't know. That's kind of hard to find the words to say that. Now I'm going to use my little finger sander, the edges, the tip and the edges, to kind of just make some little extra distress on this piece. And then I'm going to take my drill and I'm going to go in at an angle because I'm going to make a hanger, and I want the hanger to go in at the sides. I'm going to put it on the sides. So I don't care if they're actually even. I don't really care if they're even. So I'm just eyeballing it the best I can. Now, I acquired this. This is some salvaged, rusty, crusty baling wire. We call it baling wire where I'm from, because we used to bale hay, in those little square bales. Now they have the big round bales. When I was growing up, we had baling wire. And when they took the hay bales apart to feed the cows, my grandpa always saved the wire off the hay bales. So I come from a long line of hoarders, just in case you're wondering. But anyway, I don't even know where I got this wire from, but I found it in my stash. It's all rusted and crusted, and I'm trying really hard not to poke myself with this so I don't have to go get a tetanus shot. Yeah, I'm trying to be really careful because it is rusty. I do love it. If you don't like the rusty, crusty look, you do not have to do this. This is just for inspiration for something different. Now, I'm going to put the screws in, all the letters, and this is what it looks like. I love it. And I'm just going to glue down these two resin pieces with some Titebond Quick and Thick. You can get that on Amazon. I think you can buy it at Walmart. I have it in my Amazon storefront in case you want to just take a look and see what it's all about. You can Google it. I'm also going to use a little dab of hot glue to hold it in place so it doesn't slide around until that Titebond Quick and Thick dries completely. And it does dry quick, because hence the name. But I don't want it sliding around and moving around when I continue to work on the rest of this piece, which once I get this down, it's done. I am going to put some clamps on there so that it really holds it nice and tight until it gets completely dry. For this DIY, we're going to start out with this little piece of salvaged wood I got from Home Depot from the clearance section. This little piece of spindle off of a mid-century modern shelf, and this vintage lamp part. It still works. The writing is right here, so the lamp hung this way, just like you see me holding it. So the globe would have been on the underneath. We're going to use this spindle as a base, and we're going to make a little candle holder. This turns out so cute. This was sort of a happy accident. I am just going to do the little dowel rod method to put this together. You can just see what I'm doing here, drilling some holes, using some little dowel sticks to put this all together. I was going through my stash, and I was just kind of stacking stuff up on a shelf to say, I'm going to get all this stuff out and see what I can do with it. And when I stacked all these pieces together, this is how I stacked them together. And I turned around and looked, and this is what it looked like. So this was just kind of, like I say, it was just a happy accident that I just stacked it all together. I'm going to use the Titebond Quick and Thick, and it's going to hold this together nicely. Now, I gave it all a good coat with the vintage linen. I actually gave it 2 coats. I'm clear waxing it really nicely, and I'm going to take a piece of brown felt. I'm tracing it out for the bottom. I'm going to finish out the bottom with that, and I'm going to cut it out. I'm going to use the Titebond Quick and Thick. I'm going to smear some along the bottom, making sure I get it all the way out to the edges, and then I'm just going to put that piece of brown felt on the bottom so that it will sit nicely and not scratch up the furniture, or just, you know, it makes it look more finished. It just looks more professional, in my unprofessional opinion. Then I'm going to take some dark wax. This is DIY dark wax. I get all my DIY products from Sammy over at Unicorn Dust Designs. Her website is in my description box in every single video. It's a default in there, so it's unicorndustdesigns.com. Head on over there and check out all the things she has for sale. You will not be disappointed. I'm going to use the Fix-All adhesive that you get at Dollar Tree. It's an awesome super glue, and I'm going to use it because I wasn't sure on this metal exactly what kind of glue I needed, and this glue was the perfect choice, let me tell you. So I put it in there, I held it down for a little while, and it dries pretty quick. Okay, I let it dry overnight. Look how pretty this looks. Look how pretty this looks. And I decided it needed a little bit of chiffon ribbon. Just a little bit. Now, if you want a really super neutral, you could use the first piece I showed you there, but you know, it's kind of almost Valentine's Day. I wanted a little piece of blush ribbon on here. And so I'm just going to tie a little simple knot in the middle, and I made a little rosette and some little greenery on there, and I think this turned out adorable for a little candle holder. I promised you in the intro some beautiful salvaged wood, and this is it. Isn't this gorgeous? This looks like some crown molding taken out of a beautiful old home, or possibly even a church or some building. I took out that old rusty crusty metal nail before I hurt myself, and I have these lock and key molds that I had previously poured. The keys came from my friend Myra over at Farm Fresh Design 59. She poured those for me because I didn't have the IOD mold to pour those. The locks were from a mold that I got off Amazon. So we are going to make a beautiful couple pieces with this. First, I'm taking, this is the White Lightning from Dixie Belle. It's a great cleaner. This is just what I had on hand. I have a bunch of it, so I'm going to use it before I purchase something else. I took an old toothbrush. This is not the one I use in my bathroom, thank you very much. And I decided just to scrub it down really good with that and get all the dirt and grime off of it. And then I wiped it down good with a damp cloth. I did take it outside and use my orbital sander on it very lightly just to get that old shellac off, because it had a little layer of the shellac. When I used the white lightning, it got a little bit sticky, and you could see where some of that, it tried to take some of the shellac off, and you can see it a little bit in this picture. And I started sanding with my finger sander, and then I quickly realized that I needed to take it outside and use my orbital sander. And I didn't take all the finish off. I just wanted to get some of that, that shellac off of there, and work smarter, not harder. Now I'm just going to take some dark wax, and I'm just going to richen up the color of this wood. Once I got it all sanded, I took a little chippy brush to get down in the crevices and got that dark wax all in there. I used my makeup brush that I like to use to wax with and got it all down in there. And then I took my soft little t-shirt, scrap of a t-shirt. Yeah, I took that toothbrush and I ran that all down in there and got it all down in there. And then I took my little scrap of a t-shirt, I just said that, hello, and buffed it out. And I think that it just turned out absolutely gorgeous. This is just, and it's a fairly heavy piece, so I think they turned out absolutely beautiful. One piece is a little bit, has a little richer color to it. This piece right here I'm working on now, you can see it's a little darker. Has a little richer color to it, but they look very similar, and I think they just have so much character. Okay, so for these little keys, I'm just painting this with a color I mixed up. I used some Queen Bee and a little bit of a brown. I can't remember if I used layered chocolate. I think I used a little layered chocolate in there to get this kind of gold, antique gold color. And then I'm going to do half of them that color, and then half of them a gray color that I mixed up. And then we're going to use some rub and buff and some antique gold. You'll see this process along the way, but these are such beautiful keys. And I thought about doing them kind of rusty crusty, but I wanted to keep them kind of looking a little bit antique. And just, I love keys. I love old keys. And it kind of makes me think about, how Jesus has the key to my heart, and how I have to keep my heart open for him and let him have the key to my heart. And, just, I don't know, keys are just kind of special, and they unlock, and just, I don't know. I love keys, and I love old keys. So let me know if you like old keys and antique keys and skeleton keys, and if you like them. So we're going to use the Rub and Buff. I have some pewter and some ebony by Rub and Buff, and I'm going to use both of them on here. I decided to go ahead and cover the entire key with the pewter, and then I went back with the ebony and sort of just I just sort of brushed over to bring out the detail. You'll kind of see what I'm doing here with it. And so I did all the silver ones like this, down in all the nooks and crannies. And then I squeezed out just a little bit of that ebony. It was a little bit more liquid than paste. And so I guess I kind of did do a little bit dry brush over it, but I love the way it turned out. Now the gold ones, I used the DIY gilding wax, gold gilding wax, and I covered the entire thing with it. This gilding wax is so beautiful, and it's so creamy and so smooth, and it takes very little. I mean, I barely dabbed it in there. So if you think this is like, oh, it's so pricey, but I'm telling you, it will last you forever. So go ahead and get you some, because it's beautiful. And then I had this gilding polish, metallic gilding polish. I think someone probably gave this to me. I've had this in my stash for a long time, and it's more of a bronze. And so I just kind of dabbed it, stippled it over a little bit on the high points just to give it that antique gold look. And so I did some keys and some locks like this. Now on the back of these, I put a hanger. I think they would be beautiful shelf sitters because the bottom is level, but you also could hang them on the wall. I think they would be beautiful individual, or I think that they would be nice together. So I'm trying to decide what I'm going to put where, and then I just remembered that we're mixing the colors, so it doesn't really matter. But I have to decide if the locks are going on the short one or the long one, and I think I had more locks than I had keys. So here we go. we're going to just arrange them, and then I'm going to use Titebond Quick and Thick and a little bit of hot glue and just get them how I want them and then glue them down. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. No lemon here, just easy peasy. Now I'm thinking, does that look good? Yep, we're going for it. Just go for it. Don't overthink it, right? I had to be sure that I didn't let any of that hang over the bottom because we want it to be a shelf sitter as well. I absolutely love these. I will have all of the projects that I make in my videos, unless I decide to keep them. I will have them for sale in my Whatnot shows. My granddaughter Desiree and I have started having Whatnot sales. And if you're not familiar with that, it's a live auction. And it is so fun. Even if you don't buy anything, feel free to come over and chat. You can chat while we do the auction. It is so fun. I'll leave a link to it in the description box. Or on my community tab, you can always find a link to it over there as well. We love to have you come over and just chat. You are not obligated to purchase anything at all. But we always do have the DIYs. We have some vintage things and just some random stuff for sale. And some entertainment. I don't know if you want to call it entertainment, but we just visit with people who show up in our chat, show up to our show. So I'm just using a little bit of velvet ribbon that I got from Amazon, and I thought the gold and the pewter looking velvet ribbon added to this vintage look because this reminds me of, days gone by. I don't know what era. What era do you think this? I think from the 70s. It reminds me of the 70s, but even further back, like maybe, I don't even want to say, maybe the 30s. Let me know. Let me know what you think that velvet ribbon was really from. I know we had it in the 70s, but I think even way earlier than that. This is not really even a DIY. This was a book stack that I made a year or two ago, and it was for 4th of July, and I knew that I wanted to make it where I could redo it at some point. So I just pulled the bow off the top, which was very patriotic, and I'm just going to put some canvas drop cloth around it, some burlap ribbon from my stash, and just glue that around the top. And I'm putting just a little bit of glue on top of each other, very little on the book, so when I get ready to, I can take this off as well. Now, you might remember, I'm going to make just a double loop bow here, just something very simple. We're keeping this really simple. I don't even know if you could call this a DIY or not. This is an upcycle. I don't know if you remember that tag I made last week or week before. I've lost track of time with the holidays, my friends, but I'm just going to wrap that twine around the middle of that bow to hold it together and tighten a knot. And then I'm going to use that tag, that rusty crusty tag. I think that was from last week. We haven't had a Whatnot show in a couple weeks, but we're going to have one tonight. And so we would love to have y'all come over. And we're going to have this book stack in the sale. So you'll for sure want to come over. And I'm just going to attach it to the bow. Make it super simple, but I think this looks adorable. I guess if I sell this, I won't be making it over again, right? But if someone wanted to, they could make it over again. But I think this turns out just lovely. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, please drop me a comment down below. Just leave me some funky emoji to let me know that you made it to the end of this video. That would be fun. and leave me a thumbs up. Be sure you hit that thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed. We want to get to that 15,000 subscriber mark so that we can do a giveaway. I'm collecting things. I'm already finding some fun things to put in that box to ship out to one lucky winner when we hit the 15,000 subscriber mark. But most of all, I want you to remember to be still and know that He is God.